legendary texts, of healers who have been followers of lineages. So the quotient here of with any tantra is what exactly we want to achieve and why are we doing these practices. Because if we can just put a quotient there, then probably some people who are listening can then go back to their own lineages, their own studies, and evolve on it. If we just speak about certain practices, it will be very confusing in this short period. So first I'll say what Tantra is. So Tantra comes from the root Tannoti, Trayati, or there are a lot of different versions of it, because Tantra as a word is not specifically explained anywhere. But if we say what is Tantra, Tannoti, Trayati means like expansion and liberation. So when we give the example of something called as a thread in it can explain an entire cloth. So if you know a thread and its various arrangements, a cloth is known if you know how to weave it. So similarly, what Tantra says that if you can understand the atomic, the subatomic, the smallest particle of evolution, how exactly evolution took place, you can understand the entire fundamental. So a fundamental way of doing anything is Tantra. So if you go in Ayurveda, there is Shalya Tantra. Shalya Tantra means what? Is that a fundamental way of doing surgery. So some people are here from Ayurveda. So they say that, okay, in earlier times, we said during surgery, we have to do pre-operative, operative, post-operative. We have to give them anesthesia. We have to say nil by mouth, all these things. Now it doesn't matter what tools you use. In earlier times for anesthesia, we used to use liquor. Now we have anesthetics. The procedure is still the same. The tools have changed. So when the fundamental procedure is the same, it is a Tantra. You're driving a car. The fundamental procedure is same. There is an accelerator, there is a gear, there is a shift. It could be automatic, it could be manual. That is a different thing. The fundamentals are same. The car works on the same principle, whether it be electric or petrol. What it is, you're creating a force which is pushing against the inertia. That is what the fundamental thing is. So whenever we understand the fundamental thing of something, it is called as a Tantra. So Tantra is different from Tantrism. Tantra is different from Tantric ways. So if we say the definition, Tantrayoti, Tatra Tarayoti. So this is the etymology of Tantra. Now when we go about different kinds of philosophy, what is a Tantra? So even Ved is a Tantra. Even Puran is a Tantra. Any Upasana sadhana you do with a specific goal is a Tantra. It is a fundamental way. Tantra says that your body is a yantra. Yantra means a mechanism which is run by the pran within you, which is your mantra. So Tantra is understood through mantra and yantra. When you understand the mechanism of running a yantra through a mantra in a fundamental way, it becomes a Tantra. So this is the etymological explanation of the word Tantra. Now we'll come across various fields of Tantrism. It goes on a specific fundamental view of what exactly we want to achieve. So let us say when we say Vedanta or Ved, we want to achieve Brahma. So what is Brahma? In certain, I'll say Advait, which a lot of people say with monoism. I won't use the word like that, but let us for argument's sake use the word monoism. It says that everything around us is a mirage. It's an illusion. Only the consciousness is real. It is projecting itself in a derivative form. So Shankara says this is a Vivartava. In the same Advait, somebody would say, no, what is being manifested, even I am manifested from that consciousness, but I am manifested. This truth is there. This is the parinama, the cause and the effect. But eventually what is truth is this supreme consciousness. So Vedanta says that if you can understand the supreme consciousness, you'll understand the philosophy behind it. The Darshan Shastra, the Sankhya says no. It is not one. Within one is understood two, Purusha and Prakriti. So there is a holder and there is a creative power. The Prakriti word, what of time we use in Ayurveda. So this is the building blocks. But if we understand Purusha and Prakriti, we understand Avyakta. So that is the Sankhya Tantra. In Tantrism, what we say, there is there is a combination of Shiv and Shakti, a power holder and its power. This is neither dual, neither non-dual. This is neither male, this is neither female. It is something illogical. It is staying in a coherent balance. The moment the balance breaks, the Shiva becomes aware of Shakti. The Shakti separates itself from Shiva, or the spota happens. You can use any word for it. The moment the balance breaks, the I get, okay, I am this power. What happens? The Ichha happens to create. With Ichha happens Jnana, the knowledge to create. And with it, the Kriya happens, the process of creation. So Ichha, Jnana, Kriya. Those these three things are happening in a very spontaneous way, but they are at an individual level. Like how you use a word. If I have to use a word Tantra, first I have to have the Ichha to say that word. Then something will happen, the knowledge to say that word. And then it will project as an action. But when I say Tantra, it happens very spontaneously. So these three stages, Ichha, Jnana, Kriya, are there within the balance of Shiva and Shakti, which is neither male, neither female, neither dual, neither non-dual, something else. But the moment creation occurs, it starts unveiling its creation, but in a logical way. In a way, it is not happening haphazard. Something is happening with a particular process. So understanding that process, reverse engineering that process led to various types of tantras. In some tantra, the Shiva, the power holder, was understood the supreme who is unveiling his power. In Shakti Tantra, the Shakti, the one which is unveiling the power was known to be supreme. So that developed into another Tantra. From this, different kind of literature started happening. Agams, Yamal Tantra, Mantra, Vidya, Sri Vidya, Trika, Kashmir Shaivism, you name it. In that, what it is said, how will you understand the Supreme? You will understand the Supreme through sadhana. Sadhana is outside and inside. Outside sadhana comes in terms of yantras, deity puja. Inside sadhana comes in terms of mantra vidhi, the inner nyas, whatever people do. So that thing again developed into something. But what happened, because it was an oral tradition, a lot of literature got lost. A lot of literature started getting created. This tantra started happening in different parts of the world. It went into China, it went into Buddha, in Nepal. From Nepal, they collaborated into Vajrayana. Again, it came back here. We again re-adopted it. And eventually, over a period of time, it trickled down into various forms of cults. Some people said, okay, if you have to understand this process, we will go in our way of protocol. So, as I was talking in my last lecture, Aghoras, Ajivikas, Pashupatas, Lakulisa, this kind of thing happened. Some people say we'll start understanding with intellect. Trika and all these things happen. Some people started understanding with Upasana and Sadhana, Sri Vidya, Sri Tantra, this kind of things started happening. Even Ayurveda is a Tantra, because the combination of Tantra, they say there is a Laukic Tantra, there is a Vedic Tantra, there is a Adhyatmic Tantra. Laukic Tantra means what everywhere it is going. So Ayurveda, Pashura Ayurveda, Gandharva Veda, it was a Laukic Tantra. So I don't want to go into much of divisions because then it will be difficult to remember. But in a nutshell, I am trying to tell that it is nothing separate. It comes from the Venn basics fact to understand this supreme power, which is neither dual nor non-dual, which is neither male, neither female. Yet it finds its roots in the Vedanta of Advaitism. Some people might find duality in it. Like the Sankhya Tantra says there is no one. Purusha and Prakriti is separate. Madhvacharya will say no, it is separate. Vishishta Advaita, Ramanujacharya will say it in a little bit different. But eventually its spaces lies in the Advaitism. Is it the same Advaitism of Shankara? No. It is the same, but it is understood in a much practical, rational way, where we are not saying everything is an illusion, so I'm doing nothing, nor we are saying nothing is an illusion, so you are just engaging. It is giving you a rational approach to cut down through this process of avidya, this process of illusion, to reach the supreme power in a much methodical and logical way, depending upon which school of thought you are following. So I hope this, in a nutshell, gives a little bit introduction of what Tantra is, which is a huge topic, comes from different schools of thought, and probably as the questions come, we can go a little bit into details of it.
So if there are questions, thoughts, anything come up, just unmute yourself so you can just ask. If you feel you don't want to publicly voice anything, you can private message me and I will voice it. You can just unmute yourself to ask.
Hello. Could you speak a bit to systems like the chakra system and panchakosha system and how that may or may not interrelate with the idea of Tantra?
You see, whenever we speak about any kind of system, let us say Kundalini, Chakra, Panchakosh, as I said, these are concepts to understand the same primordial force. So now we are, because talking about Tantra, we'll just keep the force as Shiv Shakti. Okay, we'll not talk about Brahman, Purush, anything. So anything can be explained from that point. So when we say of the Panchakosh, in few of my lectures, I explain Panchakosh from an Ayurveda point of view, of how exactly animation occurs. There is a gross body. But the concept in sciences of this kind of a metaphysical sciences is that whenever fertilization takes place or anything manifests, there is a jiva, there is a sukshma sharir, there is a subtle body which is devoid of the koshas. So the moment the conception occurs, it is fed by the garbhanadi of the mother. If we are just talking about the human form, okay? And there is a gross body which is being formed by the seminal fluids, the combination of this. But within the gross body is the sukshma body. So it is encapsulated in this of panchakosha. This panchakoshas is of mass, where there is nothing, it's just annamaya kosha. You are just increasing in mass like Everest. We don't know if it is increasing or decreasing, but it is there. The second is of a pranamaya kosha, where first time we see animation like plants. There is mass, but yet we are seeing some movement. So first time we understand it is animating. So we get the concept of prana. Then we go to the manomaya kosha. This is a very tricky situation in Tantra because man is also associated with something called as chitta. It's a big concept, but I'm not going there right now. So what exactly man is, manomaya kosha, is emotions. Emotions is that you have got mass, you have got animation, but the first time you are reacting like animals. You go to a tiger, it has got mass, it has got prana, but it is also animating. You'll take up its child. It is not going to think that whether you're picking it up for fun or you're picking it up to kill it. If it feels threatened, it is going to catch you. If it is not threatened, it is going to say nothing. Then we come to the fourth of human intellect called Vijnanamaya kosha. Here the problem occurs because we have intellect. Because we have intellect, or won't say intellect, we'll say a reasoning power to get manipulation. We manipulate those raw emotions. So you are angry. But if it is your boss, you will curtail your anger. If it is a stranger, you will throw your anger. So here in the Vijnanamaya kosha, we are the first people who start making reason of life around us. Do animals make? I don't know, because I am not an animal. Of course, I am an animal in a biological sense. I am not talking about the intellect. So we know the Srishti from our derivative form. See, in my Vijnanamaya kosha, I am able to judge people. I am able to validate people. I am able to create a chaos within myself. And when we transcend all these koshas, when we understand these koshas as nothing but unreal, they are just a decaying koshas within which we have to find the purity of this subtle jiva. But what is this jiva? Even this jiva is not real. He is a part of a supreme consciousness. We enter into the fifth kosha, which is called as an Anandamaya kosha. Now this Ananda or bliss is not a all-encompassing form or a subtle form. It is a projecting form. Sometimes you just go into a trance and you feel happy. Then out of which you suddenly, nothing is happening around you, you're just happy. You are into Ananda, but it is a derivative form. You have got a taste. But what happens, okay, because I was here, I went into happiness, Ananda. If you hold that as the complete knowledge, yet it is ignorance. So this is what Tantra says, that the Ananda doesn't lie in the derivative form. It lies in the expansive form. So Panchakosha is understood as the sheaths which covered the Linga Sharira's existence in this universe, in this cosmos. Now, whether that existence is illusion, whether that existence is actually real and yet it is illusion, is something for your knowledge, your school or your lineage to work it out. When we come back to chakras, again, as I said, these chakras also manifest you or contribute you to understand the concept of detachment. Again, when I say detachment, it is just an English translation of the word to stabilize aham within you. So our attachments, if we go on a very gross level to this world, are of hunger, thirst, sex and validation. Sex also comes in validation. Validation means I am doing something, I should get validated. So the initial concepts of hunger and thirst come from the first Muladhara chakra, where you are not looking at food to satiate yourself. You are hungry, you can feed yourself, whether it be by sunlight, whether it be by anything around you. The nature of food doesn't matter you, the hunger matters. So you are not attached to a particular food, particular lifestyle, particular drink. Then comes the quotient of carnal pleasures. When you want to explore your carnal pleasures, are you understanding the orgasmic value of it as a continuous process? Are you validating your orgasm with your previous experiences or your gratification because you have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, whomsoever? See, when that process becomes internal, that orgasmic process is not different from satiation of hunger. You know, when you're very hungry, you put the first morsel, you feel wow. When you're just at the tip of urinating and you urinate, you feel wow. The same thing when it happens with your sexual orgasm. You understand that process, you transcend it. I'm just giving a little bit linear example, okay, because of shortage of time, because each topic can go into lengths. Then you transcend that Swadhisthana chakra. Then you come to the Manipur chakra where everything gets stabilized. You know, your location gets stabilized. You are not validating yourself. Nothing outside of the world is trying to trouble you. The moment that happens, your granthi breaks. You go to an upper chakra where only internalization is there. You are just meditating. Nothing outside you is troubling you. Your jaw, your urine, your fecus, nothing. You know, just in that zone. And you're trying to work out your inner stupidity, whatever it is. That is how you go higher, 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 higher to a chakra. Where you reach a point where nothing exists outside you, inside you. And that is how it has been said that this is how the nerve complexes work into your system. So this chakra system was a part of Hatha Yoga, which slowly got embroiled with Tantric Yoga as a tool to understand their philosophy. Is Hatha Yoga's philosophies and Tantric philosophy same? In a nutshell, technically no. But on a very all-encompassing state, it is telling you the same thing. So this is how different practices got embroiled in certain things to fast-track the process, and the practices started getting evolved. So this is little bit of concept of Panchakosh theory and chakra, though they are not related to any tantra, yet they are part of vivid lineages of how life from micro to macro is envisioned, and how this reverse engineering can occur on an individual scale.
Jamie, did you have any kind of response or follow-up questions or need for clarity?
Thanks for asking. I'm just taking it in. Yeah, I'm taking it in. If something comes, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Dr. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about something that you said just now. You said hunger, thirst, sex, all parts of validation, right?
Hunger, thirst, and sex, and any mental, physical validation, which is embroiled with it. You know, like you might do something for charity. You think that I'm doing it for charity. So people, or you might do something free of cost. People will say, wow, you're doing charity free of cost. But in your subconscious mind, it is not the money what you see, but it is the validation you see that, wow, people are, gathering around me because I'm getting this attention because I'm doing something free. So there are a lot of people subconsciously, though we may see it is a good act, because we see life in black and white. People who hoard money are bad. People who do not take money are good. In a tantric sense, everything is avidya. It has got nothing to do with vidya or pure form of conscious knowledge. The getting attached to anything, even if it is a deity, you're doing some oblation, puja, something, because to a deity, people say, wow, he's so spiritual. But if you see only that deity, you don't understand through it the nirgun, it is still called as avidya in Tantra. So this is what the Chakravada does. It slowly cuts out your any attachment to the world around you. Because in your mind, nothing should manifest. Even if you are saying that, okay, I'm doing something for free. If there is a subservient, subconscious vritti that you are doing it because people call you good, I'm not saying it is bad in moral sense, but for a personal growth, yet it is attachment. That also happens through a chakra. So when you transcend, you cut out all this vastness of outside world, so that nothing in your mind is even validating to do an action. You're totally focused inside. Those chakras are already covered. And once these chakras are covered to a point where these things do not bother, that granthi gets manifested. Granthi is like a lock. The first granthi, whatever it is, Brahma granthi, Rudra granthi, or Vishnu granthi, whatever the first granthi is there, which is above the Manipur chakra, it gets broken. Once it is broken, you are not going back. Then you have to work on your internal nada. So see, what people have done, these metaphysical concepts are very difficult to comprehend for normal people, foolish people like us. Right now we have all this kind of books, we have this intellectual forums where we talk about concepts. But understand, Tantra is an application way. Concepts is not Tantra. Concepts help you understand certain things, but eventually only the Kriya. And therefore what we see of Ichha, Jnana, Kriya as the primordial force should also be formed in your reverse engineering. There should be Ichha. That I need to transcend. There should be a knowledge, and that should be backed up by a Kriya. Only Ichha and Jnana is not going to do anything. The Kriya should be there. That Kriya could not be validated via moral social consciousness. That Kriya should be completely as the consciousness. And once that Ichha, Jnana and Kriya starts, the reverse Nada in you starts. The reverse engineering process you starts. And the whole concept of Tantra is that first the Ichha is there. Because you want to, that you want to do something. It could be a heartbreak. It could be some loss. It could be something. You will go for the Jnana. You will go for the knowledge. If that Ichha and knowledge combines, you do some Kriyas. It could be any Kriya. But again, that Ichha, Jnana, Kriya is making you attached to that school. It is still avidya. So you have to again go till you reverse engineer the process. All these other things, Chakravat, Kundalini, Vajrayan, Sri Vidya, Mahavidya, whatever you do, are just the tools to fast track this process. Because you can correlate with any school of thought. You don't have to correlate with my school of thought. I might be a Vedantin, I might follow Bhagavad Pad. You might follow Shankaracharya. You might follow Madhvacharya. Some people might follow Kashmir Shaivism, Trika. Some people will follow someone else. As long as you are following that and you're doing this reverse engineering, even if you're doing Jyotish, even if you're doing Ayurveda, you can still convert it into a Tantra, because all knowledge is reverse engineered back to that primordial force of the Supreme Brahma, the Supreme Consciousness, which is neither dual, non-dual, something else in form of Tantra, or however you might put it. So this is how the concepts of Chakra, concepts of Kundalini, concepts of different started taking place to simplify these processes. Because mind connects with the abstract. Mind doesn't connect with something which is going on in a linear process. So when you see something abstract, you see a Godhead which is abstract, you tend to connect with it. Once you connect with it, you say this is not of this world. This is something beyond comprehension. Then the concept of Sagun comes into your mind. Then eventually from the form, you start seeing its qualities. The Sakala form of that Godhead. From the Sakala form, you understand all these qualities are derivatives of only one quality. That one quality itself doesn't exist because this is all pervading. You go to the Nishkala form of that God. So these all words little bit you must have heard here and there in different kinds of books contribute to the same form.
Yeah, I think my question is also relating to how the validating is it's a mental process that happens. It's about what thoughts we attach, the reasoning, what we think it's reasoning that we use to explain why we do something or why we feel something. And it threw me off to hear it specifically attached in the food, thirst, sex. Because it can apply to anything, right? Absolutely anything.
See, that food thirst sex was made very specifically to the nervine complexes of chakra. But eventually, if you're thinking validation, it comes in Ayurveda to the three Ashnas: Dhaneshna, Praneshna, Lokeshna. Praneshna is the will to live. In that live, hunger and thirst and sex comes. Dhaneshna is the pursuit of wealth, where you want to have wealth. It could be money, it could be anything. And third comes the Parlokeshna, in which comes the Lokeshna. Parlokeshna is the pursuit that you want to go into consciousness. But before there comes the Lokeshna of validation of who I am. Fame. Somebody wants fame. So this chakra also works on this, because these chakras are nothing but nervine complexes, hormonal juices, which are secreted individually as you evolve one to one and one to many. Because our life is nothing but validation. You know, we are always either self-validating or getting validation for someone from our existence. It could be a cause, it could be the food habit you pick up, it could be the book you pick up, it could be the knowledge you pick up. So what science is saying, that it is good to start with it. You start somewhere. I start with Lord Ganesh. So I want to learn Ganesh Vidya. I go completely into Ganesh Vidya and I know everything of Ganesh Vidya. I go so deep into Ganesh Vidya that I find, oh wow, nothing is without Ganesh. Isha Upanishad says even that is avidya. Because you're only attaching to a form and it is derivative. You're not understanding the entire thing is Ganesha. You're thinking within Ganesha I found Ganesha. So you know, so beautiful it is put. And this is what is mentioned in Tantra when we say Vidya. It is a Mahavidya is a combination of Vidya and Avidya. So Vidya is this supreme consciousness that it pervades everything. Avidya doesn't mean less knowledge. Avidya means that this gross manifestation which is happening around us. That oblation to the deity can give you bhukti. It can give you the validation of staying in this world in terms of siddhis, in terms of money, in terms of self-satisfaction. Yet it is called as avidya. Why? Because you're going into deep. Like I'll give you a very easy example which I give a lot of people is that in a human body, you study like an organ, you study a liver. Then in that liver, you'll study a process of the liver. You will feel I'm going deep into the liver. I'm doing PhD into liver. You still go into the liver. Eventually go down and say, wow, I know the liver. But can you treat the entire body by just knowing the liver? You need to know the entire body. So this is what beautifully put in the Isha Upanishad. You know that the one who chase avidya, which is a gross form, they go into darkness. The one who chase the vidya within the avidya go into deeper darkness. Because vidya doesn't lie within the avidya, it lies encapsulating the avidya. And the Mahavidya is the combination of vidya and avidya. So see, these are the forms which we understand of how beautifully tantric philosophies are put for identification. Because we stay in the Kali Yuga, we have a lot of manifestations around us. We are not staying in an era where there is no corruption. Everybody is just working for their survival. The concept of ashrams have changed. Today, the ashrams are there in individual life. You are seeking validation as a wife, as a girlfriend, as a worker, as an employer, as an employee, as an activist, as a food choice, the kind of thing what you will watch on TV, the kind of thing shows you will support. These all things are happening at your choice. So within these choices, only avidya can happen. When you understand the gross total of these choices do not exist in choices, you know, choices itself embroiled in one thing, then you go towards it. So tantric knowledge gives you that benefit to first understand your gross body, its vasanas. You can understand these vasanas either through your chakras or through deity puja or through a guru or through whatever kind of practices you do. And therefore in the Kularnava Tantra first time the Swadhyaya word comes. It says it is not that somebody is teaching you something. What is reflecting within you? How exactly you are creating stillness within the chaos around you? How can you reach a point which is called as aham? A lot of time it is called as aham, but it's not aham, it is aha. The dot is anunasik. And that is what is given in Sri Tantra. Is up, ha is down, and the dot is that manifestation of aham. Because within it lies all the letters. So this is in a very symbolical way, in a beej mantric way, given in tantric philosophies. That if you understand that aham, that only you are manifested, nothing is manifesting within you, then you can transcend even that aham. But the moment something is still getting manifested, you are into calm. You say, I've taken care of your money, I've taken care of my sex, I've taken care of my everything. Yet something comes and it disturbs the cycle. It is of no use. You cannot go back, say, no, I'll take care of it, I'll go back. No, the moment it has disturbed you, you have not taken care of yourself. And this is how this Vidya is understood through different lineages. I know it is a little bit difficult to explain in concepts, because when you practice it, these things become very apparent through your body. All these things tantric practices teaches you to embodify through your body, through your experiences. This is not a quotient of intellectual talks that you take a course, you discuss concepts with someone, and you say, wow, I've understood. Intellectually, nothing can happen. It's still avidya. Therefore, it is said Shastra Nyan is avidya. Mentioned in Isha Upanishad. You should read that Isha Upanishad. It is the best form of Upanishad for any tantric studies. If you want to reflect, project it. Though it is a Vedantic Upanishad, so a lot of people do not put it. But it is the smallest Upanishad. If you understand that Upanishad, all these concepts become very apparent. So this is mentioned in each and every verse. It is a very complex. We don't understand. How can avidya, if takes you into the darkness, how can vidya take you into more darkness? Vidya should take you outside the darkness. But see how beautiful it is. It is said that if you take avidya is any manifestation. It could be a godhead, it could be guru, and you try to go deep into his head, trying to find consciousness, you're still going into greater darkness. But what is coming out of it? If you do swadhyaya and you understand in a magnanimous form, you go towards vidya. And when you go towards vidya, you understand this avidya and this vidya is a sum total of the Mahavidya. What is the Mahavidya? The primordial nada of Ichha, Jnana and Shakti. So in Kriya, that happens. And this is how tantric forms are very beautifully put, because they give you a rational way, an applicative way to understand these concepts, as opposed to Vedantic concepts where you require a lot of intellect, lot of discussions, lot of Tantra Jnana, Tantra Yukti, Nirukta, these things to understand these concepts. They become a little bit difficult for an abstract mind, the abstractness to know with a linear mind, with the chaos going around us. And we tend to believe, I love poverty, I don't want to earn money. Our concepts of this compassion, good, bad, change. And eventually the chaos starts getting created. I hope this in a nutshell a little bit answers the question. I know it is a difficult question to answer in short time, but hopefully, a little bit of clarity is there.
No, it's perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
So Dr. Sumit, just to clarify what you're saying, the basic understanding of what I got from what you're saying is any tantric definition or description is nothing but it's just a description of what is dynamic, right? What is actually present, rather than any static manifestation or static nature, right? So the idea being that the static manifestation is nothing but a dynamism at work, right? So is that how to understand this?
Yeah, you can say. See what happens if I just a little bit clarify it. Vedantic concepts, okay, let us say Advaitic concepts of Shankaracharya. Why take Shankaracharya? Because he was one of the Vedantists who most of the times, just defeated each and every thought processes at that time and established his mind. So by taking a supremacy of Bhagavad Pada, I can tell you what happens is that Vedic knowledge tells you that Brahma Satya means everything is consciousness. Whatever is manifested is illusion. It is a reflection of it. Now, we can understand it. Wow, they'll give you different things. Like, okay, something happens in an illusory phase, something happens in a econo phase, and something happens in a transcendental phase. Like, the biggest example is of Sarparajju, is that you go into a darkness and you feel a rope. You might feel it is a snake, and people start getting effects of snake poisoning. Now, what he says in the illusory phase, the snake is real, it is truth. But for the person, but in actuality, it is not there. In the real sense, the rope is the reality. But in the transcendental phase, even rope is not a reality, because it is a sum total of thread. That thread is a sum total of atoms. That atoms is a sum total of the mind, initial atom. And that atom itself is not there because it has been created by will of someone. It is projected by someone. So we can understand it in a very transcendental way. What he's saying is right. But how can we quantify it? We cannot sit here and say, no, I am this, you're me. It's very difficult. What Tantric says, that this all is fine. But the moment creation occurs with this person who is not in cause and effect, but through him, the visarga occurs. Either totality or some release of his power. What is getting manifested? is enveloping everything. But then manifestations are not unreal, they are real because we are experiencing it in the real world. Yet, when we know how it is, that is the avidya, what we say. Avidya doesn't mean like bad knowledge. A lot of people say avidya is bad knowledge. Avidya is not bad knowledge. Avidya is the illusory knowledge that this has manifested, but this is the reality. In actuality, it is there. When you see a god, when you see the statue, it is there. But if you say, no, this is a statue, this is made from this, you are still going deeper into that statue. So you are not understanding why that statue is there. So it is that because there is avidya, you have something to start with. When you start reverse engineering that avidya, you understand that, okay, you are going into something from which it is created. You are going towards vidya. The moment you go to a plane where the creation was just started, there was just consciousness. Within it, something started, you reach vidya. And then you also understand avidya, that how the manifestation occurs. But then you also say that where has this vidya come from? It is not like flying somewhere. So we say the sum total of this creative power, the enveloping power, is coming from this dynamism, which is neither dual, non-dual, which is neither male, neither female, but it is an illogical concept which has a power holder and power within it. And that is how creation is understood. So tantric processes, tantric upaya, tantric sadhanas, therefore it says, how will you know this? So you have to do sadhana, you have to do upasana. How? Depending upon your school of thought. So this gives you a very rational, applicable form of understanding this concept. And therefore it is said in the Kali Yuga, people should do Tantra. Because we belong to an era where we have got a lot of access to knowledge. The sound to sound transmission is not there. We find gurus online. We find gurus somewhere where we are comfortable. So we start with avidya. We go more into avidya. And that is the reason where that once you start doing swadhyaya, once you start reflecting, projecting on certain things, you will go ahead. Like now, if you come from some kind of educational background, now you are listening to me. If you say, wow, he knows so much, I should go to you, then that will be a wrong process. But if you understand what I'm saying and you apply it to whatever you have learned, you'll understand, no, this makes sense. No, let me try and implement it in everything which is happening around. Eventually, you go into it. So, this process of Tantra tells you to take out avidya and just take where pure consciousness lies. Though it is a derivative form, so you have to always evolve yourself with the chaos around you, but that is why it is difficult.
So, it's interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, complete first.
Mine was just a thought. Please go ahead, ask your question.
Sriram, go ahead if you with the thoughts that there's that continuity.
Okay. What was I saying? I was going to say something. Yeah, I forget my line of thought now, but hopefully I'll remember it later.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So practically, what exactly the Tantra practices are? Because due to movies and everything, we have a very different notion of Tantra and all.
See,
so can you
Tantra practices,
express something on that part?
Sure. See, Tantra practices, because that is the reason I started my talk with understanding why Tantra is there. Now, as I said, this process of going towards this power fountain, the Shaktiman concept of power and power holder, is expressed to various cults and various thought processes of how this knowledge has come through. Right from the Vedantins to the Pancharatra system, which was the first tantric system which started with Vaishnavism. There was a Pancharatra Agam. Then eventually when Bhakti form came, it got converted into Vaishnavism. Some people, few sects, some people said that no, we have to do upasana outside. So if you go to the south, people do upasana with the yantra, puja, everything. Some people do nyasas, abhyantar. They understand this concept. There is a spotvar. Okay, what is that first thing when the visarga occurred? What was that first thing which created the ichha? So they say it is a nada, it is a resonance. So we need to know that rasa. Some people say that the moment that resonance occurred, it was of So between it, all 53 letters, 49 letters of Sanskrit are there. So they start understanding this resonance through bij mantras. So these are all little bit concepts which, I'm just giving you in a nutshell. Don't take it in a very linear sense. And then what happened? How do we know this? How can we go towards this? This embroiled the practices. So these practices started with a proper methodology of diet, proper methodology of lifestyle. The people who really wanted to know it through practice. Some people started, when you go into Vajra and Buddhism, they started understanding through sexual practice. Like you see the iconography of Shiva is down, Shakti is up. So Shiva is the Bhokta, Shakti is the Karta. So what it says that during the sexual practice, when there are no validations within a man and a woman, you are just practicing for that initial concept of nada, that first thing, what is happening, then you understand this quotient. Now here, when we talk about sexual practice, it is not this practice what we do in day-to-day life. Here the male and the female have to prepare themselves in a much, self-intuitive way, having complete control over their breath and everything. But this is not passed on into the books, because this is not something you can write something into the book. It has gone through some oral practices, some lineage practices, traditions which are untold, like the yogini tradition or these traditions. Now this form, that, Tantra means sex. When you put some candles, light music, that form got more portrayed into the hippie culture, into the movie forms. Got it what I'm saying? And that is how Tantrism happened. The second kind of Tantra, as I said, is for bhukti, for siddhis. A lot of people do deity puja for bhuktis, like Vashikaran. You are from India, so Vashikaran happens when you try to control someone. Shabri mantra, when you want to make a building fall. This thing, what you saw in these soap operas, black woman, black man with a bone, and a lot of things they do. So this occult practices also came into this form, right from East India, Bengal, where these people were feared because they used to do this upasanas into the forest. They were considered more powerful. So the concept got lost. The practices started gaining more prominence and they developed into cults. The cults, and once the problem with cult happens is that when you start having a lot of disciples, everyone prepares his own cult. So as I was talking, because you have listened to all my lectures, as I said, there is only one breath. 320 pranayams are there for geographical locations. If I'm doing something in Himalayan region, I'll have to increase my heat. If I'm doing something in Annamala hills of South India, I'll have to decrease my heat. Sometimes I'll have to force some energy within me because in tantric practices, in human form, we have creation outside us. So we need to retrograde our semen, not the semen because from flowing. Because in last lecture I was talking about Poj, I was talking about Shukra. You have to maintain that purity quotient into your system so that you have complete control over the brain part, over that part, so you require a lot of practices like Vajroli. Eventually in women, the practices of Amroli started, where women could reabsorb their eggs, the women could move their structures so that they have complete control over their menses. From Vajroli and Amroli, the concept practice of Sahajoli started, where both are trying to gain their own orgasm, but between them, the structures which happen, it starts moving the energy circuits of the kanda, of the chakras in each part. So people started portraying in that form. Some people said, no, this portrayal is wrong. There is no sexual practice. Maithuna, what we say, should happen within you. The orgasm should happen within you because within you lies male and female. So can we do it? So see, conceptual form, application form. People started getting lost in conceptual application form. But if somebody is only going towards the goal form, it doesn't matter what kind of practice you do, as long as I said, aham is manifested within you and aham is not getting manifested around you. So however you reach there, these practices did not matter. But what happened? People started getting lost into practices because they gave you a power of occult. In the Nata Sampradaya or this Sampradaya, if you go, I can put Mercury. Or let us say in certain, when you go to Kumbh Mela, you see sadhus who can lift up 2 people on their penis. It gives you a sense of power, a bhukti power that no, this is something extraordinary. This is some practice which I want to know. If somebody comes and tells you something about yourself, with a clad, you will say, wow, this guy is so powerful. So you'll start learning mantras, you'll start learning having rosaries, you'll start doing japa, you'll start doing upasana, you start doing certain kind of pujas, you start doing certain kind of yajnas. It could be in a crematorium, it could be in your house. So are these practices wrong? No, these practices are not wrong. But for what purpose are you doing it? That has to be evaluated. So cults are different. What they started finding is different. And how a normal people associated with them for their own personal gain led rise to all this, cocktails of what we have in India, then Nepal and China, all these things started getting mixing up with a lot of literature around. So if you go and ask people who have translated works, they'll tell you no, they'll only tell you translations, but there is nothing written of practices. If you ask the people who are practicing, they'll tell you nothing about it because it is an oral tradition. You go to the Nat Sampradaya, I have stayed with people, so I know there is no literature about the Nat Sampradaya, which are the highest order practitioners of Tantra. But there is no literature available. Hardly few books you will find. Why? Because secrecy, oral tradition. It is like a recipe which is given, but one ingredient is pulled back. Get it what I'm trying to say? So therefore, these esoteric practices are something you only get into when you are internally evolved. When these moral social conundrums do not trouble you anymore. And when you do that, only then you go from avidya to vidya. Else what will happen, as I said, from avidya you'll start getting pulled more into the darkness. And this is what is something which gets projected in tantric practices. Eventually this esoteric form of sexual sex ritual and everything little bit started associated with the Westerners, because as I said that in the Western culture most time, in capitalist culture, there was only eat, sleep and have carnal pleasures. So people wanted some kind of an association to do, because people were earning, eating, sleeping. If you go to earlier part of America where the hippie culture started, certain parts of Europe, this philosophical bondage to our natural urges was not there. Either they were very prohibitory as an evangelist Christian upbringing, where everything was considered as a sin, or they were completely open and saying, no, let's enjoy life it is, but they were getting grief, disease, depression, validation, nothing was making sense. So when they came here, few people came here, philosophers went there, they started understanding this process. Now if you go to a person who is eating, sleeping and having, if you tell him, no, everything is illusion, Brahma is Satya, he's not going to understand it. So you have to start making them understand from the process what they are doing, and eventually bring them to the point. So were the intentions wrong? Intentions were not wrong, but what was picked up was wrong. If I teach you with any good intention, but you only pick up that practice and show up it as a power, you get an influence. And this answers the question what Jia was asking, what is validation? That is location. And that is the reason wrong practices pass inside. And this is how these practices started cultivating over a period of time. So anybody who wants to pick up tantric practices, get fascinated, should first make an effort to understand the history of it. Once we understand the entire history of it, eventually we get a sense of what kind of a practices you want to do. Are tantric practices bad? No, they are the best form of practices you can do as a spiritual practice. But what kind of a practice? What is the prarabdha? What is the end goal? Should be always mentioned, should do only and only self-inquiry. And this is in a nutshell, because that sexual question will come up, I just introduced it, so that people understand how this iconography works. Iconography came pretty late from the concept of Tara. Earlier there were iconography in Khajuraho and this of these figurines, but eventually it came from the tantric iconography when Indians thing went to Nepal, China, the Vajrayana started building, and this concept started coming. And when you have an abstract concept, you want to put it in picture, you want to represent it in some form, and eventually these forms were picked up and in totality as a significance of that practice. Earlier there was very minimal writing, certain things were pushed through Thanka paintings, iconography. People started picking up those practices, this iconography as practices. The concept behind it started becoming less, things like Dakshin Marg, Vam marks became more prominent. Eventually they were nothing different, but they got it associated with their practices. Certain tantric groups got associated with their kind of practices. The earlier Ganpatya sect started getting practices with, where there was no concern. Certain tantric practices said that only certain castes should do these practices, or certain castes should do it with certain castes. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But eventually when you talk about a supreme consciousness, there is nothing called as caste. There is nothing called as manifestation. And this is how, this mix match started happened, and now it has become such a weave that it becomes very difficult to entangle.
Okay. What do you meant by prarabdha of the tantra? You just
Prarabdha is the aim. And what is the end goal? What is the
okay.
end? What do you want to do? Where are you going? It keeps on building, right? It is something which is keeping on building within you. You are searching something, but you don't know what you are searching.
Okay.
But eventually, when you keep thinking over it, self-inquiry, the prarabdha becomes open to you. Then the prapancha starts. So the word in Tantra, prapancha means the change starts.
Thank you.
Sumitji, could you talk a little bit more about nada?
It's a big topic, but I'll say nada is not resonance, nada is not rhythm. Nada comes from the word nad, which means flow, flowing something like a nadi, you know. When we talk about nada, it is understood separately in separate form. When you talk about music, the nada is understood separate. You go to the etymological term, it understands that first initial flow when something starts, you know, like moment you wake up, a flow starts, you know, before you wake up, there is some flow which starts, which enables you wake up. You think I've got woke up and then things are starting. No, initial bang starts and now you should wake up. When you are from deep sleep, when you're sleeping, the initial point when that change occurs is called as nad. If we catch that nad, we catch the 3 stages of sleep. Similarly, it says, what is the paranad? The paranad is the moment that ichha starts, that first thing, oh, that is the nad. The moment the diamond becomes aware of its glitter, that first nad, resonance, that is called as a nad because it is a flow. And that is how the nad is. Nad is not the resonance, what is happening. Moment you get pregnant, the first nad, you know, moment it goes inside the Garbhanadi gives you a first resonance. That's the nad. And that is how we understand the concept of nad from a very etymological point of view.
Thank you.
Just a quick question about that. So when are you saying that the initial flow, the nad, when it starts, that the start of that is the rhythm and the resonance of that continues throughout, correct? Is that what it means?
Yeah, means now you're getting to point. See, these are different concepts to tell you that 0 and infinity are not 2 ends of the spectrum, they lie within themselves. Nothing is expanding and nothing is contrasting, but yet that infinity is there and within it the 0 is also there. So this nad, when you say, when that first nad starts, it releases a quotient of tangents in a particular way that it enters into it. Because now you see, if it's a derivative form, something flows, within something flows, but that flow is within there also, right? So that is how it goes down, 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 down to the primordial form where we are there, even we are not. But because we have this Vijnanmay Kosh to understand this, we can reverse engineer it. And therefore, when we say Om is not the manifestation of Uma, it is a Nad. It is understood in a gross form as Uma, but it is not Uma. When you say Om, nothing happens. When you chant, nothing happens. But the moment you know it's Nad, it is there in the air, consciousness happens because it's always around you. But you are trying to find resonance with that Nad. Till you don't find the resonance, you will always be troubled. And therefore, they say keep on chanting, 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 not like someone else chants. How will you chant it? Can you resonate it with everything in your body? So that is also a Tantra. So, you know, this is how these abstract concepts were, because we see rishis were people with like higher DNA. You know, we can't even compare our cheap DNAs with them. But yet, sometimes we can make some kind of a understanding of what exactly it is happening. So these are not varied concepts. You don't need to know Nath, you don't need to know Bij Mantra, you don't need to know Lay, you don't need to know Param Shiva. We just need to know this one concept, and which is what I tell in everyone is that Rhythm and Satyam. There is Satyam. Satyam is this everlasting truth. All pervasive truth that 0 is infinity, infinity is 0. But it is realized to us in a particular order that is called as a rhythm. It is not that manifestation is happening haphazard. There is an order to it. You know, even distraction is happening. You might think it is haphazard, but there is an order to it. So this rhythm and satyam appears to your mind in a as a cause and effect. It's presented in the same time. When something is manifested, we see it is manifested. But do we know how it is manifested? That order is already there. So for us, what is the rhythm? The rhythm is that sun and moon are rising every day, they are going. But are they rising? But for us, it is an order. So you can first align with them. You align with them, then you understand that, oh no, even this is not the rhythm and satyam in totality. You go beyond that. You go beyond that. And this is how this derivative to big form was understood in different forms of Vedantic language, Tantric languages. But in Vedantic language, what happened is that there were a lot of yagyas, there is a lot of upasanas, everything was on a sonic meters. You have to pronounce something in a perfect way, which got lost with time. Once you write a language, ethos goes away. If I write a word, you will pronounce it in your accent, I'll pronounce it in my accent. What I'm talking about, other people might not know. But sound, it is the perfect. You can't say ah for the rhythm changes, the meaning changes. And that was how it was there, but it found difficult to understand. And so what happened, Tantric knowledges gave you an intellectual form to understand it. This simplified form to understand it, and eventually they condensed it into a bij mantras. Without that initiation, without that polishing, that mantra is of no use. Because if within that mantra contains the seed, why it's called bij? Actually, it is called bij. It's not even called bij. If you see the exact pronunciation, bij mantra. So the birth and the work is together. But we don't want to go to the intellectual part. The quotient, what it's saying is that the bij is the bij. Bij means the electricity. But because it is hidden, it is the bij. We are not initiating it. And that is how people started understanding this compilations in a different form. So when we understand the concept, you follow a school of thought, you surrender yourself to some guru, not to that person, but what is coming through it. You start practicing it irrespectively in your life, cutting out your moral, social, economic insecurities. The nada within you start stabilizing. Why? Because you're not getting affected with anything. Within that, when you then please the bij, whatever that initiation your guru gives, because he becomes one with your nada, you start polishing it with your practice. That becomes your tantra, because that is running your yantra, whatever is. That's how you transcend it. So these things gave a very methodical form to understand it. Some people fast tracked it with sexual practices, because it becomes a little bit very difficult to understand this thing in a woman's body. Rhythm is there, but because it is so much with social moral issues, wife, this, that, pregnancies, it becomes difficult. So their practices were difficult. Our practices become celibate because we are just, reproducing here and there without any concept. Eat, sleep, reproduce. That's what people were doing. So they said, no, wait, understand the resonance within you. So different practice started developing. Certain people said that if you indulge too much with the woman, this control comes difficult, not on a physical plane, but on a mental plane. Because on a physical plane, you can have abstinence, but what happens with the mental plane? Constantly, if that thing is going, how will the resonance be there? That happened. So, these were concepts which were taught. Eventually, they started getting little muddled with how exactly this information got trickled down. And eventually, we are ended up with a lot of concepts. So if you talk Nad, if you talk Vilaya, if you talk Visarga, if you talk anything, they are one and the same. You want to understand this concept with Nad, then you have to understand your Nad with him. You can use anything to do it. If you want to understand the concept with Bij, you can do it. If you understand the concept with Yogini Vidya, you can do it. If you want to understand the concept with Buddhist Vihivajra or Guhya Samaja Tantra, you can do it. Understand the concept with Trika, you do it. With Vedanta, you do it. So, with Sri Yantra, you do it. It doesn't matter.
Dr. Sumit, the question has come in. From what I know, the word Tantra is composed of two words, Tanoti and Trayati, to expand and to release or discard, respectively. Expansion seems more easy. You try and you experience more and more. However, to let go or discard seems like the difficult part. How can we practice Trayati in a proper way?
Okay, see, again say expansion and liberation through it, but discarding comes in expansion only. Trayati means liberation to it. But I got the question because it's a very good question. So again, we don't have to fall into etymology. We have to find into what it is said. And expansion and liberation cannot be, this is the primordial problem when we take up spiritual practices, that we go with a head-on concepts of what I can do and what I cannot do. We have our own concepts of compassion, love, whatever we can say. The first thing Tantra says that whatever you are doing, you are a part of avidya. You are not contributing to anything, neither anybody is contributing to you. You are a part of a change. If you are going and buying something from someone, you are not doing any favor to him. You are doing it for your own belly. Somebody is growing something, he is not doing favor for you, he is doing for his own belly. So where we are going? We are going to this primordial three yashnas of Dhan, Pran and Lokeshna, which I talked about. Somebody is working for food, somebody is working for health, somebody is working for fame. And these all things are not individual. These all things appear to our mind simultaneously. So once we start understanding it, we understand that we are not obliged to be anyone's father, mother, daughter. No, you are on your own path. You cannot learn a knowledge from someone. You can only apply it on your own level with your own shit going around you. And that's where expansion first comes. That I want to expand. I want to go beyond these conundrums of being attached, of being so much that this manifestation is continuously happening into my mind. If I'm sitting still, I'm saying, okay, wow, I've got a lot of money, I've got very good health. Suddenly you start getting pain in the back. You say, oh, where is my health? So it is not that you have overcome everything. Body is decaying. The stillness happens that, okay, my wealth will come and go, my health will come and go, people around me will come and go. Am I being unaffected? That is a difficult part. It happens to everyone. Not because if everybody can transcend it, everybody will become enlightened. But that prarabdha, what is that will, that ichha shakti to be there, creates the jnana shakti, the search for knowledge to go there. So if you find someone who is practicing it, he might not be perfect, she might not be perfect, but at least that quotient is coming to you. Then can you surrender to that process? Again, I talk about this Guru Seva and everything, not to the person, but to the process. Can you take those difficult decisions that, okay, I let go of this? When earlier times, Guru Shishya was a Guru told the Shishya, okay, go and just leave your job. They used to leave the job. They used to know I have to pay my bills. I have to take girlfriend out. These things were not, can I quit after 2 months? This quotient was not there. Why then and there can you create chaos and be ever stood? These things were there with the direct path. If somebody has learned or from India here and they read some books, they'll know what I'm talking about. But you only see, wow, what kind of a guru. But when that guru comes in front of you, do you recognize him? Why? Because you yourself have not recognized your prarabdha. So from here, expansion and this comes, and you have to develop this within yourself. Can you give up your thought process of activism? Can you say that I'm not eating meat because I'm doing favor to earth? No, hundreds of animals are getting killed anyway. What favor are you doing? But are you eating meat thinking, no, anyways, nothing is happening, let me eat? That is also a problem. But you're just eating what is in front of you. That time to support your Agni. If it is meat, fine. You don't want to eat, fine. Can you then support your Agni by doing breathing? Why? Because that time that Agni has to be supported, else it is going to create imbalance within. That is awareness how you develop. This is not a choice you make. It is a choice within a choice. That comes from letting go. And once we start doing this at a very fundamental level of our life, with job, with people, eventually you start growing. When you start growing, you start finding people who tell you the right thing. It is not that you find someone on internet and you say, wow, this is good, I should. No, it is good for a start. But eventually, if you start taking those concepts and not applying in your life, you'll always be listening to people. See, even in this lecture, whatever I am saying, I'm not an enlightened person. But I can only say I come from a strong practice. This is something which I've learned, I try to implement. Have I made mistakes? Made mistakes. Will I make mistakes? No. But eventually, those things should also dissolve, that there is no right and wrong. I have come to a point where now nothing exists within me. And once we start doing it, we let go of past traumas, we let go of our initiation, and then those practices of mantra, prayer start helping. But how many people will say that, okay, I want to do a practice, but I won't get up at 5 in the morning? It starts from there. How many people will say, okay, I want to test my breath, but I won't go and sit in the cold. I'll first test it in the confine of my room. Some people go overboard. No, I'm doing a practice, I leave all my food and I'll go on a meat diet, or I'll go on a vegan diet. But is there any method? Why? Is it supporting your practice? No, because this Guruji was doing it, this practice, I am following it. That practice is not going to give you enlightenment. It will give you a sense that, okay, because somebody is doing, I am doing. But by doing it, is there a stillness within you? And these choices come from there. You cannot get up one day and say, I want to expand, let go. It starts when you start taking that action. You start doing it on your day-to-day basis. It could be that you are going into a room and some people have a habit of keeping the books where they are, everything. Not a single thing should be moved. Can you go there, something is moved, and sit stillness and not let affect you? You say no. So this is what happens. Because that thought is already manifesting in you. You have seen it. You sit down. It will not let you sit properly. So that stillness, then we can think of big things of expanding and letting go. So when you start with small things, then nothing is affecting you. Neither cleanliness, neither tidiness. You are okay. You're tidying up because it needs to be tidy. You're cleaning it because fine, it needs to be cleaning. Then eventually you start getting stillness. Some people prepare a room so that in that they have a stillness. That is fine. One book here and there is not going to make a difference because their stillness is already there. Some people create a retreat or an ashram to go there because then outside it nothing bothers them. Why? Because they have identified their source of stillness. But somebody says, oh, for stillness I need to have a place somewhere up in the mountains where the river is flowing there. Nothing is going to happen. So these things have been put very well through these books, through these autobiographies of saints who have lived this life. Unfortunately, we do not read autobiographies of saints who have led the life. We read autobiographies of people who have sat into the confines of the room and given knowledge. I'm not saying that is bad, but we have to start applying these things and eventually these concepts start coming. So there are a lot of upasanas. You don't have to go straight away and do meditation. You can start with certain upasanas, you can start with certain dhyans, you can start with certain things under guidance of someone and eventually develop these concepts.
Thank you.
I have a question. This concept of stillness came back also when I first attended on Saturday, which was the first time that I heard you speak. You spoke a lot about this inner stability and stillness, even in the context of creative energy and Shakti then. So I'm curious about it because as I'm listening, I'm thinking about my own practices that I have, daily practices or the other teachers that I follow, but also that have sort of given me practices that I've incorporated now into my own life. And I'm wondering if you would suggest, or if maybe one of the explorations is that we find spaces that generally stimulate us, or that generally tend to give us this time of response, and to explore or experiment with what our body is doing, what our internal body is experiencing, in order to actually remain in this stillness, in this stability. I guess my question is, are you suggesting that we put ourselves in circumstances that trigger these stimulations, or that trigger these moments where we might respond, and then we actually experience the process of staying in stillness in that context?
See, I get your question, but there is no direct answer to it, but I'll try to little bit explain the concept. See, when I talk about stillness, there is a geographical stillness and there is a mental stillness and there is a physical stillness. Mm-hmm. Mental stillness comes from the kind of work I'm doing in a society. Like I'm earning money, I've got a family, some people are going through something, I am going through something. So is it affecting me as a validation? Am I earning money just because I feel I need to earn money? Or am I earning money just because it doesn't matter? Right now I'm doing it, it is supporting something which I always wanted to do. Let us say I wanted to get some car. So I earned money, I got the car. But I earned a lot of money and suddenly I see, why should I spend so much money on that dream car? Maybe I can take a lesser car and I can use that money for saving. Logically, it seems right. But am I driving a car which I don't even want to look at? So this vasanas, this stillness which are growing into your body as primordial forces, are you able to balance with it? They are affecting you no more. Now this I give you a very haphazard example of car. You can now think in terms of relationships. You can now think in terms of your duty, which you want to think that no, I should support my children, I should support my partner, I should support. Moment you understand you can't support anyone, you can only be still within, true to yourself, being selfish within, only selfless outside. So eventually what happens, your actions become a conglomerate of something which is not causing chaos around. Now where this comes from the reasoning of the Shastra or the lineage. When you start comparing these concepts with your day-to-day life, it doesn't matter if you are in a spiritual place or a non-spiritual place. These concepts are for Shrushti. When we say Shrushti, for anything that is manifested. So that is the first thing. Second thing comes from the physical practices. That let us say that you have achieved the state of complete stillness. You are like I say that if you have heard my last lecture, I said if I'm angry, my breath will change. So I do some breathing to stabilize it. I'll go out of anger. So I'm not holding anyone responsible to make me angry. If I'm making angry on you, it is the stillness within me which is disturbed. So the moment it has happened, I go internally, the practice is helping me out. So that is one thing. Second thing is, can you do this practice and test yourself in any geographical condition? Why? Because you're sitting in the confines of the home, it is very easy. Tomorrow, can you go into a very difficult place and yet maintain the stillness? Can you go into a snow mountain and do the practice same as you do in your house at 5 in the morning? Or else when it is too cold, I'll skip the practice for 4 days. Or I'll just do it half. Are you confident enough to do that practice so that you're still? Can you increase the heat? Can you decrease? So once that stillness is something which comes within you. You suddenly start becoming aware that nothing outside you is influencing your choices. You can either stay without food, or you can stay with the most richest of food. You can either stay in the 5-star of places, or you can stay in the stable. The stillness is not going to get affected. Once that happens, then your practice becomes perfect, and only then you can go within to know these higher concepts of Nad and something what we are talking about. But a lot of times what happens, we do practice, we feel good about ourselves, we feel, no, I've broken my chakra, I've gone up. There lies the problem. So this is a constant struggle from your past, present, karmas, whatever you have done, of all those vrittis are gone. You're angry on someone 5 years back. Now you have become very still. Suddenly you meet that person. So do you still become angry? There is nothing wrong in becoming angry. Can you use your practice to go back into the state that, no, I won't let him control my anger? It's fine. So, this constant vigil, when it happens, the Tantra becomes your practice. You can use any techniques, any teacher to gain that knowledge, but can you apply it is important, because Tantra is all about application.
Yeah, and so on this this process, sometimes we think of, we have these sort of embodied patterns. So this concept of things that put us into states of reactivity or take us out of this inner stillness, and there's this moment where we have this gap of silence, or this gap of prior to a response. When we're in these cycles, and there's a lot of energy work that I do that suggests that we're trying to get out of these circles and into this spiral, to moving out of these circles of repetition and into a spiral that then allows actually for new, from the mind perspective, new neural pathways to open that were previously not available to us. And so I guess I'm wondering, I have some questions around this idea of the repetitive pathways, that we find ourselves in, and how, or in what ways maybe the procedure of Tantra allows us to actually just kind of shift frequencies and be in a different frequency that is possibly more spiral than circular, if that means something.
See, on a neurochemical pathway, I can understand where you're coming from. Because most times we gather information from our life, and eventually 80% of time we reflect to that information as comparison. So eventually new experiences in a multitude forms are not created. So that is something which I would say could become a comparative part of whatever practice you are doing. But the answer to actually understand it is, I say, in the metaphysics of the Tantra. What kind of a Tantra are you following? What are its metaphysics? Like I gave this example of Vidya and Avidya. Now this might sound as a very Sanskrit concept, but if we take on a neurohormonal pathway or chakras on a neurohormonal pathway, it is the same thing. When you say stillness and nothing, everything is being manifested, what is happening is that you are shooting into multitudes part of the brain from a single point of focus. You're trying to find either solutions or either expressions to throw out that thing. You are becoming angry, but there is a boss in front of you, can't show your anger. That adrenaline is secreted, that brain has given a response, but you are finding ways either to negate it, suppress it, which is causing the spiral of reactions. That reactions you are okay, fine, okay, but that causes another trauma that slowly makes someone become submissive. The same person, because he subvert his anger, will throw it out somewhere and become aggressive. So different parts are so on a neurochemical way, you can understand it from an EEG, beta waves, gamma waves, theta waves, this, that, you can understand it. Or you can understand it, the circle of Willis, caudate nucleus, lenticular nucleus, how exactly these pathways are working. But eventually what happens, a linear pathway cannot give a all-encompassing experience. It has to only come through a logic of practice and reason. That reason can only come is that Vedic sciences are not about going into too much details of derivatives. They are concept of understanding the building blocks. So for example, as I'll tell you, so there are only 6 tastes. Sweet, sour, whatever it is. If I understand those tastes in totality, I can understand anything that is manifested through taste. But the moment I tried, somebody tells me, oh, this was almond and this tastes like almond and toffee. And I've never tasted almond. How will I know the taste? But the moment I know a taste, somebody tells me something, I automatically register it into my brain. Sanskrit also it was the same, being a phonetic language. When I say sir, they understand what exactly it was. And you know, that is the reason why it becomes such a very technical science, is Tantra, that it is trying to tell you to enable all parts of your brain. You know, so in Sanskrit, joining of 2 words is called as sandhi, you know, a combination. So in Taittiriya Upanishad, it is written, the first word is the Guru, the last word is the Shishya, the Sandhi is the Tantra. Once you understand, because now if I'm projected into same way, we all are created of 2 symmetrical halves. We are joined by an invisible line. The brain is different. You see a leaf, it is dichotomous, 2 leaves. Anything, any object into manifestation, you can break it into a Sandhi. It acts independently, yet it is conjoined. Even if you see Shiv Shakti, it acts conjoined, but there is a Sandhi. So these concepts, when you start studying metaphysics and understanding their relevant concepts, your brain starts going into different neurohormonal patterns. And that is the reason why Shastras told to put bij mantras, to project mantras, not only by talking to them, right from using all the vayus into your body. What are these vayus doing? These vayus are creating small nervous responses, which we call as the initial spanda, you know, the small molecular atomic quantum reflex required to register something into the brain. I want to lift my hand. What is the minimal quantum reflex required for the energy to tell my brain lift my hand? And it is lifted. So to lift my hand, my brain has to first tell lift the hand. So minimal impulse should go into the nerve. After the hand is lifted, okay, do I want to lift this much, this much, this much? The moment it is done, it tells the brain it is done. This entire concept is envisioned into your brain. See the concept of talk. They say, before I say a word, did we envision it? What letters are going to be formed? How exactly I'm going to create the pitch? It starts being envisioned. So it says that when you go into reverse, you understand the entire, you put all parts of the brain. It is a very important thing that, you know, you can, I tell this, that you can remember the sequence in forward. If I tell you to remember the sequence in reverse, you'll have to really think. If I tell you right now what happened before you started the lecture, you will tell me very quickly. Okay, I went there, I went there, I went there. But if I tell you, okay, now tell me in reverse, you will have to think. So similar in Mantra Shastra, it was not only Anulom, it was Vilom. You tell the mantra this way also, tell the mantra this way also. What exactly you were doing, the same concept what you are talking. spirality, but it was nothing individual to it. It was embodied into the practice. So therefore, first a sadhak became stable with his diet, discipline, and his nata. Then this embodied practices were put inside to reverse engineer the brain so that all parts of your consciousness is working. And only then through it, the chakras start working. So, there are different aspects to get into this point. Intellectually, they really appeal to the brain, but only when we practically apply it as a one embodied practice, it comes forth.
Okay, so I think that one of the things that you're sharing is actually the embodied experiences is also one of the ways in which we are shifting these mental patterns, right?
Yeah, because see, if anyone has learned a little bit of tantric metaphysics or any metaphysics, everything has been detailed out from the gross to the subtle. See, the beauty of it is that even before you create a thought, how that thought has been conceived has been expressed in metaphysics. Now we only take it for an intellectual way. We do not put it in an applicable way. Once we start understanding this in an applicable way, in a reverse way, eventually you're doing the same thing what you're talking to me, but only it is not apparent in that form. Now, can you read a sentence in vertical? You'll only read a sentence in horizontal. But when you start accessing the brain, like when we start accessing the brain, we start reading sentences in vertical. So if I just flip through and I know what is there. Yeah. Why it is happening? Because you're accessing all part of the. Why again that is happening? Because while reading, you're using some kind of a breath. So, these things became as an integrative practice. Now we are segregating it. Like some yogis breathe, we put some kind of expansive sphygmomanometers, spirometers to understand how much oxygen capacity is happening. Some sadhus are meditating, we are seeing okay, is accessing some inner constant of the brain. And we then start making a practice around it. Actually, that is just a contributing factor. Let us say tomorrow that in my complete meditation, my prefrontal cortex and occipital cortex are just going bang bang. So you'll say, okay, now let us induce this with electricity. Let us induce this with mantra. So is that going to give the same quotient of consciousness? No. That has been arrived at me. For me, that stillness might have arrived because those were the initial lobes when I was born, which were most hyperactive. Some other people, some other lobes might be hyperactive. We don't know. Some people's lobes change with reason. Some people's lobes change with accidents, with experiences. And therefore, the yogis said that nothing lies outside you, everything is within you. If you control this in a manner, in aligning with nature, eventually this biochemical process starts getting aligned. Now we are trying to understand this through genetics, quantum mechanics, neural scientists, neural pathways, artificial. I'm not saying it is a wrong way. It has helped a lot of people. But eventually that is not the concept of consciousness what is put in Tantra. So these are two different things. I'm not saying that they are completely different tangents. They may be complementary, but eventually we understand any Tantra through its metaphysics. That metaphysics have to be taken as a praman. Praman means as an authority, that they exist. Once we start decoding those existence on an interior level, that Tantra becomes your part. So tantric practices are to understand this metaphysics of the Tantra, what you are doing. Now, while doing so, if this neurochemistry is happening into the brain in spirals, it is a contributing factor. But can we induce it chemically through other methods and understand the Tantra? That is something of a quotient everybody should debate.
Thank you.
According to Tantra, where this Ichha comes from? Like, what is the origin of the Ichha exactly?
See, metaphysically, if you see, it is already embroiled in creation because you cannot create something without Ichha. So you say, why this Ichha occurs? It is the nature of it. When you hold something, eventually when you become aware, it starts. It is not that you are doing it on purpose. It is your nature. The moment you wake, before that I was giving, it is already the nature of you to wake. So this is a very spontaneous reaction. we try to go into cause and effect. So Ichha doesn't mean, oh, okay, I got up today, I want to create something. It is a nature. It is whole in symbiosis. When that symbiosis breaks, the flow happens. Now we are talking about cosmic creation, so we are looking at it from a one linear point of view. That is our problem. It is not linear. It is all expansive, all encompassing. You will say, no, there was a spot in space. But if there was space, then how is the spot the origin? Because space is already there. So we say nothing is there. So you say nothing means what? We can't understand it. Now you have to put something and then say absence of something is nothing. So when you say absence of everything is nothing, then how will you encompass everything? It is an abstract idea. And that is the reason with a linear mind, we cannot grasp it. Because as I said, our experiences are always linear. Our knowledge always comes from comparison of something or rejection of something. Acceptance is always occur through either comparison or rejection. But the moment we start accepting something without questioning the reason behind it, you enter into a Tantra. And then the evolution starts. But anywhere you see, whatever you have done, acceptance is not like, okay, somebody is telling me I've done it. You either reject something, whenever also you are studying, it is not that you can study without, this is what I'm studying. You either reject some part, you accept some part, consciously, subconsciously. You read an entire chapter, you want to put into your paper. You are not going to remember everything. You are either going to compare, oh, not this, this is not from this chapter, this is not meant. That you will prepare, or you will compare, okay, this is, so I should write it in this way. And this is how, see, the knowledge comes. But when you accept something in totality, then the knowledge becomes all encompassing. That is what we call a surrender to a knowledge guru, whatever it says, or the philosophy which you are picking up. But if you start comparing and rejecting any philosophy you pick up, it will not add to your path. This is, a little bit metaphysical problem occurs when we start spiritual practices. You say, okay, this practice I align with, you're comparing. Oh, this is not like this practice, I'm rejecting it. It is good for starts, but somewhere you have to start say, okay, fine, forget it, now I'm accepting it. And, this is how the Ichha starts. When you accept something, the Ichha automatically flows. Is there the Ichha in rejection or comparison? It is there, but it is not a complete visceral. It is still there. It is a process. It is building up. The moment it builds up, the jnana and the kriya starts. So similarly, it is said that it is always building up. Acceptance, rejection, coherence, this. The moment acceptance comes in totality, oh, this is what I am, Ichha starts. So this is what is a metaphysical quotient given in this metaphysics. But of course, I said this intellect is of no use to talk about. Eventually, people should start practicing. It only appeals to the intellectual mind. It's very good to understand and say, wow, what a concept. But for me, it doesn't make much of a difference if you ask me on a personal level.
Okay. But Ichha is also, rejection is also an Ichha itself, right?
Then that is what I said. It is an Ichha, but it is not building towards totality. What I was trying to say that somebody doesn't say someday getting up, I want to create. It is this comparison, rejection, what we call about this nada. You suddenly, even if you press an accelerator from 0 to 100, it's not going to go as soon as you press. It is going to take some time. That time is going to go through some resistance, some force, which is acting on it. So similarly, the spanda, the first nada occurs when this complete acceptance of totality is, oh, this is I am. The moment I am happens, it starts. The moment you accept something in totality, your Ichha and Kriya, now you are looking nowhere, right? You are going with the flow. So I gave you this concept of exception and rejection to tell you why this Ichha. This Ichha should not be taken as will, as we take it in a gross level. Ichha means it's not my will or wish. Ichha is not wish. Okay, I wish today. Ichha is this inherent property of totality that when you become aware of this totality, it starts.
Thank you.
Dr. Sumit, can you speak more about...
Don't ask me etymology of Ichha. Okay.
No, not. I'm done with that.
Okay, fine.
Survival of the fittest when it comes to practically with women, and I guess in reference to like yogini tantras. Like, so when
Survival of
to the
fittest means?
survival, this, like the concept of the survival of the fittest, right? Like way back, women or these yoginis, the dominance of their energy, or they were kind of quote unquote in power. Right? You hear about these matriarchal communities and societies were based on matriarchy. And so the concept of kind of like even survival of the fittest, when it comes to just on our day-to-day basis, how does like that play out when like within especially women's and the evolution as women? Because there's a certain chemistry and power and Shakti energy at play within women and how that unfolds.
See, I'll tell there is, personally, I'll feel that there could be geographical or political pressures for what you're saying, but eventually it is the women in themselves who have subdued their energy. See, energy, as I said, has got no gender. It is expressed through a gender. The whole concept of Shiv Shakti together, if you take it in a very sexual way, let us say, just for argument's sake, the concept is not male and female. The concept is with the conjoint male and female. That there is neither male and neither female. The energy is same. It is being expressed through different organs. When we say about survival of the fittest, a society was there where people were not concerned with each other. You know, like people were just practicing. There was not much population. People in isolation. No one used to bother. Something like that. Eventually, what happened with cultural affluences and little bit of morality and codes of ethics, we started coming in different cultures. You know, it was very easy that women got domesticated, they got castigated into a room. So eventually, those practices which required mind conditioning started getting converted into sadhana form. That women were doing all the puja and things of the house most of the time. You know, preparing these thalis, doing pujas, festivals, because that was the economical requirement of the time. You know, we were an agrarian society. Slowly we started developing into communities in different parts. The north of India, so if I just talk about India, the north of India saw many invasions from invaders. The south of India was for the much period of time shielded from it. So there different kind of practices started happening, and eventually they started developing into a different form. Then an era came when women's rights liberation happened. First in US, happened for different reason. As I say, you know, the revolution happened. I don't want to comment on why it happened, but it happened when women started getting their own rights, single mothers started getting their own rights. It happened with a movement to suppress a community, but eventually it started happening. Then what happened from this concept of equal pay, feminism, subduation. Again, I said, information is either compared or rejected. So we started feeling, no, we are subdued. We need to be on equal with men. We need to be equal here. Shakti rising. Why should I not do something? You know, all these things. Oh, sorry, I'm talking Kavitaji's book, but I'm not referring to it. So it's just like Shakti rising is just saying I'm Shakti. Okay, this is what nothing to do with the book. It's an excellent book. You should read it. So eventually, I'm Kali, I'm Durga. You know, this started getting very gender-based complex, and here the sadhana part went away. So when I say that women have themselves subdued themselves because they themselves have put so much moral social connotations of themselves, they do not want to get out of their roles. Have you seen 2 women work together for a project for a long period of time? 10 women working together for a project for a long period of time? It don't work. There are always differences. Why there are differences? This validation, this appropriation that, you know, and this. And when we start evolving this, when we start breaking these shackles, we understand it doesn't matter male or female, diet is the same. The moon and the sun is the same. It is rising for you also and me also. Just in my body, the rhythm comes through visarga of menses. In men, it comes through a different form. If you have a urge to reproduce, so has men. If you have an energy to create, so have men. So there is no difference on that level. Certain aspects you will do better on a physical level, certain aspects they will do better on a physical level, certain thresholds you will have much more on a physical level, they will have less on a physical level. On mental level, you can handle certain situations better, they can handle less. But because we have put ourselves in a role in a society of a mother, a worker, a child bearer, you know, we ourselves have confined our minds to that. And when we see that we do not get the same freedom as men, you know, who just put a baby into you, then just go to work, do their stuff. This oppression comes from there. So I think when we go into these tantric practices of Shaktism, we should not think, oh, Shaktism, this is female practice. Yamal, this is male practice. No, we have to take a practice where this stillness cultivates within you. As a male or a female, doesn't matter. You also understand your orgasmic energy in the same way, on a technical way, not knowing that you are a female, or not knowing with whom you are doing it is a male, but as this one complete energy. Can you first get around these concepts? Can you first throw away these things? This year first comes your discipline, yam, niyam, whatever we say. And eventually this thing happens. So if you talk about why yogini practices went into oblivion, it was not because of this society. It was just because there was no one enough who understand it in a much better way. You know, it took a lot with a period of time for women to transfer this to women. It became very difficult. So eventually it got lost to time. Some part of it survived in terms of women physiology. You know, in terms of understanding women health, in terms of understanding women's problems, it survived. But the inner core practices got away. Few of those practices were picked up in the Buddhist Vajrayana Tantra, and what form is a male form? You know, Shav, Shiv. It started getting esoteric forms in other tantras. In certain Vaishnava tantras also, what happened is Krishna is one, everybody is his devotee. So even Sahajiya said, even the men dress like women, because they only Krishna is male, everyone is female. If you go to the cult of Radha, that is completely different. So you know, this form survived, but they survived in a very secretive manner, so that on the outside we felt that devotion is happening, on the inside these practices were done. But then people started getting this moral high ground. No, I'm doing puja, I'm doing this, then maybe this is a good practice. Oh, he's eating meat, he's drinking liquor, this is a bad practice. And here the problem lies. Even when these practices went to the West, appropriation started happening. No, I'm teaching a good tantra, I'm teaching a bad tantra. And you know, then eventually this thing trickles down. So I personally feel it has got nothing to do with survival of the fittest. I definitely see it is just that the women have right now associated wrong things in terms of comparison and feminism. I'm not here to offend anyone, but if you are talking just from tantric point of view, this is what we have to say, that we have to first stop accepting ourselves in that role. You cannot start fighting that, no, accept us in this role and give us equal. You stop accepting yourself in that. No one has told you to do that job. No one has told you to care for kids and pamper them till their lives. If you cultivate this stillness within you, that no, I have done my job equally well as a spouse, as a mother, eventually start evolving. No one is stopping you. You will say, no, I come from a conservative family. I do not. If you do not have the choice, then do not learn Tantra. No one is forcing you to do it. Learn something else. So it is not a birthright to learn something at your own will. As I said, you have to first go into it in totality. You have to accept it. If you accept it, then do everything to understand it. And then from there, you know, this rising will happen.
So Sumitji, I have a question in continuation with Shweta's question.
Okay.
And I totally, I mean, I understand what you're saying about if you've come into this role, or if you have a certain, you said, okay, if I say as a woman, I want to learn Tantra, I have to break through these shackles, which may be conditioned or my self-imposed. Does not matter what it is, whether they're conditioned or they're self-imposed. I guess what my question is not a question. It's more of a inspiration to say from you. How do we continue to do it? How do we continue to break through these, whether it's a societal conditioning or our own conditioning? How do we continuously keep this practice going? How do we continuously keep doing it? Like, for example, I'm saying, I'm staying in a house right now, and I'm staying with my parents, right? And it's very different when you're staying, as you know, in India, with elders, and there is no question of it being a patriarchal. Like if my husband speaks something, who has probably no experience in Tantra or spirituality, my father or people will listen with like, oh my God, right, that a man is speaking. But if I try to do, and I do it, I'm not saying that I don't, but it's a continuous, I have to continuously navigate my way through those norms. It's a continuous work for me. It's a more of work for me to do that.
Okay, I got this question, and this answer I see is very simple for this. First of all, our problem lies here that we want to show someone that I know something. This is the question. You yourself answer the question. If my husband speaks who has got very little knowledge, maybe people will learn because they have accepted he's trying to learn. Maybe he's from a different land, he's trying to learn. But if you speak, it is not. The breakthrough happens that these practices are individual. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. It is your path, you have accepted. You have to keep on doing it. And when you evolve from within, people around you will be forced to accept it. But if you are unable to tell that quotient to someone, you will keep on telling, oh, this is something I know. They are not going to see the light in that way. Of course, tomorrow you go and you show them some magic, let us say just for hypothetical. They might worship you as a devi. Yet have they understood you as a person? They've seen some divinity, so suddenly you have become a goddess. So they will worship you for their own insecurities. But what we are not telling that people should worship you because you know something in particular form. The quotient here, what I'm talking about, it is a continuous evolution. You stay in your father's house, you stay in your own house, you stay with your child. If you are not, you're taking your role as a daughter, as a mother, somewhere where you feel vindicated to do it because you are in that role, then eventually you're not growing. But if you do something, what you feel is through your stillness, your daughter is going through some mess. You are in your stillness, you say, see, this is what I feel, but it's your job. If you want to fall, you fall, I'll be there, but I'm not going to. And you're saying it not for the sake of saying you mean it. That will come through. The moment you show that, no, I know something, I've done this, I've been there, you should know this. What you're doing, you're trying to validate your knowledge. Here comes the problem. And you're not saying this is a female problem, it's also a male problem. But because we are understood separately, it is given norm that, because I am speaking, fine. People will listen because I am a male. That might be a little bit of privilege for me to be a little bit okay with it. But it also works to my disadvantage because if I'm getting that much of attention, am I growing from within? But for you, what happens, because you're not getting any attention, let us see, it becomes a little bit easy for you to not prove anything to anyone. Only your actions will prove that you are so independent that you can survive anywhere, but some people will not survive within you. And there comes the chaos. And that is what every woman, I feel, in today should start cultivating in their multitudes of roles. We pick up a lot of roles, we adhere to a lot of concepts because we feel that, okay, this bad has been in this good. And that is absolutely fine. No one is telling you to stop doing any activism. But that activism should not come because of your role as a gender. It should come because for the stillness within. It should not matter you are a male or a female. It should not matter you are a wife or a mother. You have done your part. You have given birth, you have done your part. You have given your milk, you have done your part. You have given food, you have done your part. You have taken them to a point where they are taking decisions on their own, you have done your part. After that, you can only share. But if you are not yourself stable in it, you hold the same patriarchal concepts, then however you explain them, it is still going to be avidya, whatever I'm trying to say. And these small concepts, when women go into these practices, they should understand. A lot of people take these practices as escapism. A lot of people take these practices because they want to look pious, because they want to look spiritual. A lot of people get so much embroiled with the practice, they start believing they are goddess. Something like this happens. And it becomes very difficult to get out of the shell. If I start treating you as somebody very knowledgeable, God, it will be very difficult for you to get out of that shell. You'll start reacting like that. You'll start then gathering knowledge for intellectual purposes, which is going to do you no service. But if you say it doesn't matter, like I'm telling you that it doesn't matter who listens to my lecture, what they are, I'm just telling what I feel is right. What I have learned, I'm not saying it is right, but I try to get to the basics of everything from that one point. I can explain everything. So it simplifies something, not only for you, but for me also. Then after this lecture, I'm going to take these concepts and reflect on it, of what wrong I am doing. Can you do the same and apply it in the very next moment? Can you see the chaos around you and cut through it? And only then it happens. Otherwise, what happens? Then you only keep looking at dependency. Somebody was asking about spiral thinking right now. And I told them that you stay in the mountain, you stay in a house, you stay amidst a lot of people. Can you cut the chaos? Can your practice support you to be still and say, no, man, when I get out of this house, I'll do my practice? You're wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot find home away from home. Wherever you are is home. You can be a little bit ruffled for a few minutes, but eventually you should trust your practice. If that is not helping you, then probably maybe you should start from the basics again. Not everywhere I'm going to get my kind of food. Not everywhere I'm going to get my kind of conditions. Not everywhere I'm going to be safe. because safety changes from person to person. Today I'm staying with you. You're good to me. Tomorrow you can be bad to me. Nothing, Kavita ji. I'm just telling you an example. I hope she's good to me. But eventually that can happen. It is not in me. I have not done anything. But the human nature is such that you cannot predict anyone's perceptions about you. So that is not knowledge. The knowledge is, can you be still to the change that is happening around you? Can you be ready to let go? That okay, if somebody is creating chaos in your mind, can you ready to leave everything and go somewhere else? Can you trust that practice that I will be taken care of? It doesn't matter. When that still thing starts happening, eventually the practice grows, and whatever techniques you learn, support your practice in that mental, physical, and geographical location. So that is what I want to make, that any practice you do, tantric practices, breathing practices, eventually the end goal is the same.
I understand what you're saying, and I think it's again as what you're saying, it's more of a I get what you're saying, because it was not more about the speaking, but it was more about whether it's having the practices that you recommend of dinacharya, or waking, eating, sleeping at a certain point. And I totally understand what you're saying, that it doesn't matter what everybody says, you just continue to do your practice, no matter what is going on. Yeah.
One step I'll go ahead and tell you, because I'll add here, this dinacharya, everything is fine. The moment what you said, that being aware, as you said, if your husband says something, it doesn't matter. But if you say something, it matters. The moment you are thinking this,
right.
Are you aware to it? If you're not aware to it, you're thinking it is happening because of their perception.
Right.
That initial moment you're aware of it, your practice helps you. That is what I'm trying to say. And that has got nothing to do with gender.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Sumit. Thank you.
I just want to comment on what she was bringing up, because I think it's a really amazing point, because I've found that the worst possible circumstances you could imagine are actually the most fertile, in my experience, where you feel like, this couldn't be any more wrong for what I'm trying to do here, for these kinds of practices. And it has felt like that was in retrospect, the best way to do it, even though it feels like the messiest or most impossible, but it's possible in any circumstance to practice that, to try to find that and be working on that, because it's internal. And it doesn't matter who or what is around you. So it's a really good point.
So are there any other questions, thoughts, inquiries before we close for the night? These sessions, the evening ones, have been interesting. I know these evening ones, it's like right before bedtime. And so it's an interesting time to have these that'll keep on percolating into your sleep. So we're having our last session, closing session, this Thursday. So 7 to 9, you can register at the website, gutsyourliving.com. So bring other questions or inquiries that you may have. And it's an open forum, so there's no topic. It's an unconference style, so just bring anything.
Yeah, except etymologies.
Yes, except those. Those I'll just chat you about. No. And of course, if you haven't donated already, donations are appreciated. We want to fund Dr. Sumit's Milk and Whiskey and Gizzard Fund to keep him going for the rest of his stay here in the U.S. I'm sure Dr. Kavita ji is really nicely taking nourishing Dr. Sumit in his ways.
Absolutely, can't complain.
Yeah, so, but the fund will, so if you haven't donated, if you can, we understand there's, you know, a lot of people are having challenges during these COVID changes, impact of COVID right now. And if you're interested in a consultation with Dr. Sumit, feel free to contact me to learn more about his approach. And then you can decide if you want to go forward or not. I think that's it. Any other comments for the night before we close?
Thank you both for showing up. Such
Thank
a privilege.
Dr.
Thank you.
Sumit for breaking it down like a arrow.
For this Dr. Sumit bombs, like you call them, Shweta, I like that.
Sumit
Dr. Sumit bombs. Yes.
Sort of as like a fire hose a little bit too. Thank you.
I know, like, but that's why sometimes if you choose to, the recordings are helpful to review. I feel that really the nature of being here present, and I encourage folks to be here live because it's really different. I know.
Energies, yes.
Absolutely. Like when I hear Dr. Sumit's recordings, when I've sat in his clinic and I'm like, you know, it's like record, but then it's like whatever's supposed to you receive. And it's really different. And so it's wonderful you guys are here live because it's different. But the recordings nevertheless will be made available to you so that if you do need to review, it's there. And it's still, it's better than nothing, so. All right. Well, good night, everyone. And thank you, Dr.
Thank you, everybody.
See you, Brian. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumitji. Thank you, Shweta. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta ji.
Thank you,
Bye.
Doctor.
Thank you, Shweta. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shweta. Much love to everyone.